"You're the biggest disgrace to this family." The words cut sharper than any blade, landing on me with the weight of years of misunderstanding and resentment. My daughter's sneer lingered in my mind long after I turned away, leaving the room quietly, carrying only the calm that comes from knowing some battles are not worth fighting. I walked through the hallway, footsteps soft on the worn wooden floor, my hands loose at my sides. The house was silent behind me, the echoes of my daughter's anger fading like a storm passing through an empty valley. I didn't argue, didn't raise my voice, didn't try to justify myself. Words meant little when hearts are closed, and pride runs deeper than any explanation I could offer. Outside, the air was crisp and still, a faint mist rising from the streetlights. I took a slow, steady breath and allowed the quiet to settle over me, letting the tension release from my shoulders. Life, I had learned, is not about proving yourself to those blinded by anger or misunderstanding. It's about holding your own calm in the storm, and sometimes, leaving the room entirely is the most powerful statement you can make. I returned home to a night spent in solitude, reflecting on years of attempts to guide, teach, and support my children, often met with defiance, impatience, or outright scorn. Yet, I could not allow their anger to shape my peace. I had lived long enough to understand that their judgments are a reflection of their own struggles, not of my worth. Morning came slowly, sunlight spilling across the empty kitchen, a gentle warmth that contrasted with the cold words from the night before. I was sipping my coffee, letting the aroma settle over me, when I noticed something unusual: my phone screen flashing red with notifications. 37 missed calls. The volume of them shocked me, but I remained calm, allowing the quiet to settle before I picked up. My daughter's name flashed repeatedly across the screen, each notification a symbol of urgency and panic that had replaced the defiance from the night before. Somehow the anger had turned into need, and now, the balance of power had shifted without a single word from me. I leaned back in my chair, observing the chaos of her missed calls without haste, without judgment, and without the slightest hint of panic. Life has a way of teaching lessons far more effectively than confrontation ever could. And it seemed she had learned, albeit abruptly, that silence and composure carry more weight than anger ever will. Her texts began to appear, short bursts of frantic words. "Dad, I need you. Please call me." They came in waves, frantic and desperate, a stark contrast to the cold sneer from the night before. I did not respond immediately. I let the moment linger, allowing her to feel the shift in reality, that the person she had deemed a disgrace had not changed. And yet, the world she counted on now required my guidance. I set the phone down, looking out the window at the quiet street below. Sunlight glinting off the rooftops, soft morning hum in the distance. This was more than a lesson for her. It was a moment of realization for both of us. Anger and contempt can only carry someone so far. Calm, patience, and quiet strength have a far greater reach. And as I prepared to call her back, I knew the next conversation would not just resolve whatever crisis had prompted those frantic calls. It would be the beginning of an awakening, a recognition that respect and understanding are earned, not demanded. And that true influence comes from composure, wisdom, and presence rather than force or words alone. I picked up the phone, my fingers steady, heart calm. It was time to see how she would respond to the consequences of her own harsh words, and to the quiet strength of a father who has learned that some lessons cannot be taught in anger, but must be experienced through humility, urgency, and the realization that help is only given to those willing to see it. By the time she arrived at my apartment that morning, the panic on her face was palpable. Her hair was disheveled, eyes wide, and hands trembling as she clutched her phone like a lifeline. She hadn't spoken since the first frantic call, but the urgency radiating from her was unmistakable. I watched her silently, letting her absorb the weight of her own panic before I said a word. "Dad, I I didn't know what to do, she finally whispered, voice cracking, almost pleading. Everything's falling apart. I need you, please. You have to help me. I remained seated, calm, letting the moment stretch. She needed to understand, not just hear, that consequences are not mitigated by anger, nor solved by frantic desperation. They demand presence, clarity, and deliberate action. Sit, I said softly, motioning to the chair across from me. She obeyed, hands trembling, body tense, eyes never leaving mine. First, take a breath. Calm down. The panic will make everything worse. You need to think clearly before you act. She exhaled shakily, nodding, trying to steady herself. I don't know how to do that, she admitted, voice trembling. Everything's spinning out of control. I gestured to the papers and documents she had brought, scattered across the table in chaos. Contracts, emails, and notes, each one a testament to hurried decisions and overlooked details. Observe. Study what has gone wrong. Understand the situation fully. Only then can you respond effectively. Do you see where the mistakes began? Her eyes darted over the documents, tracing lines, reading emails. Yes, I see it now. I didn't double-check anything. I assumed everything would work out. I was careless. And now you understand the consequences of carelessness, I said calmly. This is not just about failing at one task or one decision. It's about recognizing that every action has a ripple effect. You can't expect others to clean up after you. You have to face it. We spent hours dissecting the crisis. Step by step, I guided her through the client's concerns, the contractual obligations, and the delicate relationships at stake. Every question she asked, every hesitation, I answered with calm precision, letting her see both the errors and the path forward, without doing the work for her entirely. Her hands shook less with every passing hour, though her face remained pale and tense. The panic was giving way to focus, the desperate energy replaced by deliberate, careful thought. She began to ask questions with more clarity, listening carefully, processing what was being said rather than reacting immediately. Finally, the client called. My daughter hovered, unsure whether to interrupt or stay silent. I took the lead, speaking with measured authority, addressing concerns, clarifying missteps, and rebuilding trust. Each pause, each inflection was deliberate. I could feel her learning without me needing to say it directly. She was witnessing the difference between panicked reaction and calm, strategic action. Hours later, the call ended. The client was reassured, the contract stabilized, and my daughter was left to absorb the full weight of the lesson. She slumped into her chair, exhausted, trembling with relief, humility, and awe. I can't believe you did all of that, she said finally, voice raw. I've been reckless. And you fixed it. I shook my head gently. I didn't fix it for you. I guided it. You had the opportunity to manage this yourself and failed. Learn from that. Leadership, responsibility, accountability, they are not given. They are earned through mistakes, through careful thought, and through facing the consequences of your actions. Her eyes glistened with tears, voice barely above a whisper. I thought I knew what it meant to handle things. But I see now. It's not about authority, or acting first, or proving yourself. It's about responsibility. Every decision matters. Exactly, I said, voice calm but firm. And this is only the beginning. Today, you've begun to understand the weight of your choices. But the lessons will continue, sharper and more challenging. You must carry this awareness forward, not just today, but in every decision you make from now on. She nodded slowly, swallowing hard, taking in the full measure of the lesson. Relief mingled with humility, and for the first time I could see the spark of understanding in her eyes. She had learned, not through scolding or confrontation, but through experiencing the consequences. of her own actions and seeing the quiet strength of a father who has learned when to act and when to let lessons sink in. And as the afternoon light filtered softly through the window, I knew that while the immediate crisis was managed, the real growth, the understanding, humility, and responsibility was only beginning, because panic teaches nothing. But reflection, guidance, and facing consequences teaches everything. By mid-afternoon, the situation had escalated far beyond the initial panic. The client had followed up multiple times, emails stacking in rapid succession, each one sharper than the last. My daughter paced the apartment like a caged animal, hands trembling, shoulders tight, her eyes wide and frantic. Her earlier confidence, the sneer she had worn just the night before, was gone, replaced entirely by desperation. I can't handle this, Dad, she admitted finally, voice shaking. Everything's falling apart. They're threatening to pull the account. I made a huge mistake, and now it's all my fault. I watched her, calm, composed, letting the weight of her own panic fill the space. She needed to feel it fully, the chaos, the fear, the sharp reality of consequences. Only then would she understand the lesson behind the crisis. Sit, I said gently, motioning to the chair across from the table. She flopped down, gripping her knees. Take a breath. Observe. Panic only destroys clarity. You need to see everything before you act. She exhaled shakily, attempting to steady herself, but her gaze remained darting, restless. I've never felt like this before. I don't even know where to start. I picked up the stack of papers she had brought, the emails, contracts, and notes, all in disarray. We start by understanding where things went wrong. Step by step. Every detail matters. Missing even one can snowball into disaster. She leaned over the table, scanning every line carefully. Mistakes leapt off the page: careless wording, hasty decisions, assumptions made without verification. And yet, within those same lines, a path forward revealed itself, if only she had the patience to see it. You see this? I asked, pointing to one overlooked clause. This was avoidable. But now that it has happened, you must handle it deliberately, without fear, without panic. Every choice from here on out carries weight. Her hands shook less as the minutes passed, though her face remained pale, eyes wide with apprehension. She began asking questions, listening intently, digesting my calm explanations, trying to translate the chaos into a structured, manageable plan. The client called again. She hovered nervously, unsure whether to speak or stay silent. I took the lead, addressing concerns with measured authority, acknowledging mistakes, and carefully rebuilding trust. Each pause, each inflection was intentional. My daughter was learning by observation, seeing the difference between impulsive panic and controlled, strategic action. Hours passed. Step by step, the crisis began to stabilize. The client's trust, though fragile, was slowly restored. Contracts were clarified, obligations reaffirmed, and the immediate threat averted. And yet, my daughter remained pale, trembling, a mixture of relief, humility, and awe marking her features. I can't believe you handled all of that, she said finally, voice raw. I was reckless, Dad. I thought I could do it all, but I failed. I shook my head slowly. You didn't fail entirely. You learned. And learning is the real measure of success. Leadership, responsibility, accountability, these aren't things you inherit, or are given, or demand. They are earned, often painfully, through mistakes and reflection. Her eyes glistened with tears, voice barely above a whisper. I see it now. I thought I knew what leadership meant. I thought it was about control, power, and making quick decisions. I was wrong. It's about responsibility, consequences, thinking before acting. Exactly, I said firmly but gently. And this is only the beginning. You will face more challenges, more moments where panic feels inevitable. But the ones who succeed are those who pause, think, and act deliberately. The ones who respect the weight of their choices. She exhaled deeply, finally letting the fear settle into something more productive, a spark of understanding. Relief mingled with humility, and the first real seeds of maturity began to take root. I need to do better. I want to make this right. I want to prove I can handle it. I placed a steady hand on her shoulder. Then start now. Every action, every word, every decision from this point forward matters. You've seen what panic brings and what calm focus achieves. Remember this. Let it guide your choices, not just today, but every day. As evening light filtered through the window, the apartment quiet but charged with the weight of learning, I saw her begin to absorb the full measure of the lesson. The panic had not vanished entirely, but it had been tempered, reshaped into determination. Sometimes, I realized, the greatest lessons are not taught with anger or scolding, but through careful guidance, observation, and letting consequences speak. And now she had heard, seen, and felt those lessons in full. For the first time, I saw the possibility of the adult she could become: responsible, humble, capable of handling not just crises, but life itself, because the hardest growth comes from struggle, not comfort. And now she had begun to grow. The next morning, sunlight filtered softly through the blinds, casting thin stripes across the kitchen floor. The apartment was quiet, the calm after the storm heavy in the air. My daughter sat at the table, hunched over, hands clasped tightly, still pale from the stress of the previous day. She hadn't slept much. Her hair was messy, eyes wide and haunted. And yet, for the first time, she was listening. Truly listening. I don't understand how you stayed so calm yesterday, she admitted finally, voice trembling. I don't know how you handled all of it without panic, without yelling, without losing control. I smiled faintly, the corners of my eyes crinkling. Experience, patience, and understanding consequences. You will see one day that panic accomplishes nothing. Calm, deliberate action, observation, and thoughtful choice, these are what truly move situations forward. Not anger, not frustration, not desperation. Her gaze softened, but still carried the weight of remorse. I acted like a child. I thought being angry, being demanding would get results. I didn't even notice what I was asking of you. I was unfair. I leaned forward, placing a steady hand on hers. You weren't just unfair. You were unaware. But awareness is the first step toward change. You have to understand not just the mistakes you made, but the mindset that caused them. Only then can you begin to act differently, responsibly, deliberately. She nodded, swallowing hard, voice almost breaking. I want to be better. I want to handle things responsibly. I want to prove that I can manage, that I can lead without relying on you to fix everything. That's good, I said calmly, though firmly. Because the lessons you learned yesterday weren't about the client, the contracts, or even the panic. They were about you, your choices, your responsibility, your understanding that life doesn't hand you solutions. You earn them through thought, reflection, and action. She exhaled deeply, finally allowing her shoulders to relax slightly. I see that now. I feel it. I understand that I can't expect anyone else to carry the weight of my mistakes. And I don't want to. I want to learn how to stand on my own. Exactly, I replied. And that is the essence of maturity. You don't need to fear consequences. You need to embrace them, understand them, and use them as a guide. Only then will you truly grow, not just in business, but in life. The sun climbed higher, filling the room with warmth. She leaned forward, resting her forehead lightly on her hands, eyes closed. I realize now how much I underestimated responsibility. I thought authority was enough. I thought anger or demands could get results. I see now. It doesn't. It's about thoughtfulness, patience, and accepting accountability. Yes, I said softly. And this is only the beginning. There will be more challenges, more mistakes, more moments that test your resolve. Each time, the lessons will sharpen. Each time, your understanding will deepen. And each time, you will have the choice to act wisely or not. Her hands tightened around mine, eyes opening to meet mine. I want to act wisely. I want to take this seriously. I don't want to rely on panic or shortcuts or pretending I know more than I do. I want to be responsible. I nodded, the corners of my lips lifting slightly. Then start now. Every word, every choice, every action you take from this moment on will shape the adult you become. You've felt the consequences of recklessness. Now use that understanding to guide your path. She let out a long, shuddering breath, a mixture of relief and humility, and finally allowed herself to smile faintly, though tears still glistened in her eyes. Thank you, Dad. Not just for helping yesterday, but for teaching me. I understand now. I think I finally understand. I leaned back, watching her carefully, seeing the subtle transformation, the shift from panic to comprehension, from arrogance to humility, from fear to cautious confidence. This is what I had hoped for, though I had never expected it to come so quickly. Sometimes, I realized the greatest acts of love are quiet. They are not about scolding, punishing, or rescuing. They are about letting someone experience the consequences of their choices, then guiding them patiently through reflection, understanding, and deliberate action. She exhaled again, settling into the weight of her own growth. I feel different, she whispered. Stronger. I feel like I can handle things now. Like I finally see what it means to be responsible. Yes, I said quietly, softly but with certainty. You feel different because you are different. You've seen what panic brings and what calm, careful thought achieves. You've begun to understand the weight of your choices, and that understanding will stay with you forever. For the first time, the apartment felt lighter. The tension of yesterday had transformed into clarity, the storm into stillness. And I realized as I watched her sit quietly, breathing evenly, that this was the moment when the lessons had truly taken root. Because life doesn't hand out understanding. It demands that we earn it, often painfully, and rewards only those willing to face themselves fully. And now, finally, she had begun to do just that. Sometimes, the greatest transformations come not through force, but through patience, guidance, and the quiet strength of a presence that does not rush, does not panic, and does not give in to anger. And in this moment, I saw her beginning to transform into the responsible, thoughtful, capable adult I had always hoped she could become.